Chloe just dropped a bomb on her own relationship, and the fallout is insane. She told her mom that Johnny cheated, even though nothing like that actually happened. But what happened next shocked everyone. Johnny had no idea Chloe would twist the story, and her mom was ready to go nuclear the second she heard it. You could see the panic in Chloe's eyes, she instantly regretted it, but by then, the damage was done. Could Chloe and Johnny survive this mess? And while that was unfolding, Madeline was about to confront Luke in a way that left everyone speechless. Her words were sharp, her energy unfiltered, and Luke's patience was tested more than ever. Meanwhile, Dylan thought he could coast through the day while camping with Paisha, but his mom had other plans. She called and called and called again. Paisha's frustration hit a boiling point, and it was clear that Dylan's inability to set boundaries was about to spark a major fight. And you know the tension isn't just about a phone call, it's about respect, trust, and figuring out where family ends and relationships begin. Back to Chloe and Johnny, the moment her mom confronted him at the beach was electric. Johnny tried to explain himself, and Chloe tried to apologize, but every word felt heavier than the last. The conversation teetered between accusation and explanation, and you could almost feel the relationship balancing on a knife's edge. At the same time, Malin's intensity with Luke revealed a deeper story. Past hurts, insecurities, and fears collided in real time, and Luke had to navigate not just the words but the emotional weight behind them. And Dylan, sitting there with Paisha, had to deal with a partner who was fed up with feeling invisible when his mom constantly inserted herself. The dynamics were messy, complicated, and raw. Every call, every glance, every word carried consequences that none of them could ignore. Chloe's lie, Malin's confrontation, Dylan's mom, each story is building toward a breaking point. How long can these couples hold it together before everything unravels? And as the day goes on, one thing becomes clear. Nothing is going to stay quiet, and the fallout is going to hit harder than anyone expected. Chloe and Johnny's relationship has been a roller coaster from the start, but this episode takes it to a whole new level. In past episodes, we saw Chloe struggle with trust and insecurity, while Johnny tried to keep things calm despite her overreactions. Things seemed manageable until Chloe decided to confide in her mom. And when I say confide, I mean she told a story that made Johnny look like a villain overnight. Apparently, she claimed Johnny cheated, even though their not official status technically made it more of a misunderstanding than anything else. But the moment she dropped that bomb, everything shifted. Johnny had no idea, Chloe immediately regretted it, and her mom's protective instincts kicked into overdrive. Could one lie really throw this whole relationship off the rails? When Chloe told her mom, you could almost hear the tension crackle. Her mom's eyes went wide, her voice rose, and suddenly the calm beach setting felt like a courtroom. Chloe's words hung in the air, heavy with regret. Johnny tried to stay composed, but you could see his frustration building like steam ready to explode. He wasn't mad because of the lie itself. He was mad because Chloe put him in a position where he had to defend himself against accusations that weren't true. And her mom, bless her heart, was operating on pure emotion. She couldn't separate fact from fear. She was protective, yes, but she was also turning a misunderstanding into a moral indictment. The question now was, could Johnny navigate this without losing his cool or breaking up right there on the beach? By the time they were walking along the shoreline, Johnny paused to show Chloe's mom a pretty view, and the moment was awkward. Every step was filled with unspoken tension. Chloe wanted to apologize, but the words didn't come out right. Johnny tried to explain the situation, emphasizing that the supposed cheating never actually happened. But Chloe's mom wasn't convinced. She kept repeating that a cheater is always a cheater, ignoring the fact that nothing had really occurred. You could see Johnny thinking, I am standing here being accused for something I didn't do, and this is not okay. Meanwhile, Chloe was mortified by her own actions, realizing too late that telling her mom might have been the worst decision of her life. At this point, would Chloe's confession completely destroy the fragile trust they had left? The conversation reached a boiling point when Chloe tried to reassure her mom that Johnny is committed and hasn't done anything wrong, but her mom remained skeptical. She wanted proof, she wanted guarantees, and she wanted Chloe to be safe. Johnny, on the other hand, was trying to maintain his dignity while being grilled for something that didn't even happen. The awkward pauses, the stilted attempts at humor, the small sighs of frustration, it all painted a picture of a relationship under extreme scrutiny. Chloe's regret and Johnny's patience were in constant tension, and the mother's overbearing approach made it feel impossible for them to find middle ground. Every sentence carried weight, every glance was loaded. Could they survive this intense parental pressure without everything blowing up? By the end of their segment, Chloe's mom had to leave, but the tension lingered. Chloe was left feeling guilty and anxious. Johnny was simmering with frustration, and the underlying trust between them was shaken. Nothing was resolved, and you could tell that the fallout from this conversation would ripple through the rest of the week. Both are walking on eggshells, knowing that any small misstep could ignite another argument. And while Chloe vowed to be more careful, Johnny is silently questioning if this relationship can really handle that level of drama. Dylan and Paisha have had a tense few episodes, and this one pushed their limits even further. Previously, we've seen Dylan struggle to balance his loyalty to his mother while trying to build a life with Paisha. Paisha, meanwhile, has been adjusting to a new culture, new expectations, and a partner who sometimes prioritizes his family over her. The stage was set for friction, but this episode turned the volume up. It all started while they were out camping. Sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. Dylan's phone kept buzzing, and Paisha quickly realized it was another call from his mom. One call would have been fine, but these were constant. And each ring chipped away at Paisha's patience. She tried to ignore it at first, telling herself it was just his way of staying close to family. But as the calls kept coming, her frustration boiled over. You could almost see the thought bubble above her head. Is he dating me or his mother? Dylan, on the other hand, wasn't being careless. He genuinely feels a strong connection to his mom. She's been part of his life in ways that Paisha, coming from a different culture, might not fully understand. He calls her to check in, to share little things, to make sure she's okay. For him, it's normal, comforting, and habitual. But for Paisha, it feels intrusive, as if she's competing with his mother for attention in a space that should be theirs. It's not just about the calls themselves, it's about what they represent. Divided attention, a lack of boundaries, and unspoken expectations. How long can Paisha handle feeling second to Dylan's family? When Paisha finally asked Dylan to set limits, the tension spiked. She wasn't asking him to cut ties, just to respect their relationship. She wanted scheduled times, clarity, and acknowledgement that she deserves space too. Dylan, however, resisted. He thought they had already settled this at dinner. He assumed that since he agreed once, everything should be fine. But Paisha wasn't satisfied with assumptions. She needed explicit action, not vague promises. The clash was as much about communication styles as it was about family. Dylan's approach was casual, Paisha's was intentional and firm. Their perspectives weren't wrong, they were just misaligned. Could Dylan finally set boundaries, or was this fight going to spiral out of control? The argument escalated in subtle ways. Dylan tried to laugh it off, thinking humor might diffuse the moment, but Paisha saw it as dismissive. She reminded him that constant calls during their time together felt like a lack of respect. Dylan argued that it wasn't fair to treat his mother's check-ins as an invasion, and you could feel the tension in every glance and word. The conversation revealed more than just the phone calls. It exposed differences in upbringing, cultural norms, and expectations of partnership. It wasn't personal, it was structural, emotional, and deeply rooted. Would they find a compromise, or were they setting themselves up for ongoing resentment? By the time the sun started setting on their camping trip, both were visibly frustrated. Paisha wanted reassurance that her feelings mattered. Dylan wanted understanding that his family connection wasn't negotiable. Neither felt fully heard. The scene captured a fundamental struggle. How do you love a partner while maintaining family loyalty, especially when the partner feels like a stranger to your traditions? Psychologically, Dylan's attachment to his mom is tied to identity and habit. Paisha's frustration comes from a sense of belonging and respect. She wants to feel prioritized in her new life. Neither side is wrong, but both are in conflict, and the tension is palpable. Even when they tried to move past it, the unresolved issues lingered like an unspoken shadow over every conversation. Every smile felt slightly forced, every laugh slightly hollow. The calls hadn't stopped, the boundaries hadn't been set, and the underlying question remained. Whose needs come first when family and partner collide? Can Dylan learn to balance love for his mother and respect for Paisha, or will this constant friction pull them apart? The scene ends with both of them silent in the tent, the storm outside mirroring the storm between them. Nothing is resolved, and the pressure is mounting. And while Dylan and Paisha wrestle with their tension, another couple is about to hit the screen with a confrontation that's even more intense. Luke and Madeline are waiting, and their drama promises heartbreak, shouting, and revelations that will make this episode feel like it's only halfway done. Luke and Madeline's saga has been intense from day one, but this episode brought every unresolved issue to the surface. Previously, We've seen fights explode over small misunderstandings, passive-aggressive comments, and a lack of appreciation. Mayline's past trauma, being abandoned by her mom at 16 and growing up without a consistent father figure, has made her hypervigilant in relationships. Every word, tone, and gesture is filtered through years of hurt. Luke, on the other hand, is desperate for calm and recognition. He wants Mayline to see that he's committed, that he notices her, and that he values their partnership. But in a household where past pain collides with present expectations, even simple conversations can feel like a battlefield. The episode starts with tension already simmering. Luke is trying to prepare for the wedding weekend, but every attempt to discuss plans triggers Maylan's defensive side. She asserts herself in ways that are both protective and aggressive, reflecting her lifelong need to control her surroundings. Luke tries to be patient. He tries to offer appreciation, reassurance, and calm, but Maylan's responses are sharp and direct, leaving him walking a tightrope between respecting her boundaries and asking for the acknowledgement he craves. And as the argument escalates, it's clear that this isn't just about a coat or a box, it's about power, respect, and emotional safety. Would you tolerate this kind of constant tension in your relationship? Mayline reminds Luke of her past struggles, her loneliness, and her distrust of men who have disappointed her before. Luke listens, sometimes stunned, sometimes frustrated, but always trying to convey that he's different. I see you, he says, but she doesn't just want words. She wants consistency, respect, and security. And Luke wants her to recognize that he's trying, that his patience is not infinite, and that small acts of appreciation matter. Their conversation swings between emotional vulnerability and defensive aggression, creating a charged atmosphere that keeps viewers on edge. Can two people with such contrasting emotional histories find common ground before the wedding? As the argument unfolds, the intensity ramps up. Mayline's assertiveness clashes with Luke's desire for acknowledgement, and both are left questioning their expectations. Luke fears that their fights will overshadow the wedding weekend, that all their plans will collapse under the weight of unresolved issues. Mayline fears being dismissed, minimized, or hurt again. The tension is raw and the stakes are high. Every glance and every tone carries more weight than the words themselves. And yet, in the midst of all this, small cracks of hope emerge, moments when Luke and Mayline remember why they're together, why they care, and why they still want this relationship to work. Will their love survive the chaos, or is the wedding just a countdown to another fight? Luke and Mayline's dialogue isn't just about conflict, it's about communication and boundaries. Luke wants appreciation, and Mayline wants safety and control. The episode makes it clear that neither side is wrong, but both are struggling to meet the other halfway. Mayline's intensity is fueled by trauma, but her responses are also an attempt to protect herself from being hurt again. Luke's calmness and desire for recognition are genuine, but sometimes his patience is mistaken for weakness or indifference. It's a delicate balance, and every scene demonstrates how easily miscommunication can escalate into emotional explosions. Could a single misunderstanding derail months of progress? By the end of the episode, there's a partial reconciliation. Mayline acknowledges Luke's efforts, and Luke admits he wants to respect her boundaries more. They agree to try and start the weekend with a clean slate. But the tension hasn't vanished. Subtle cues, a sigh, a sideways glance, a brief pause suggest that underlying frustrations are still simmering. The audience can feel the fragile nature of their truce. While they hold hands and exchange a few words of love, both know that the coming days will test their patience, their communication, and their ability to truly trust each other. Can Luke and Mayline keep their peace, or is the next conflict already waiting just around the corner? This episode reminds viewers that relationships are rarely simple. Trauma, miscommunication, and unmet expectations can turn ordinary moments into emotional storms. Luke and Mayline demonstrate that reconciliation is possible, but it takes effort, empathy, and honesty from both sides. Even in moments of calm, the tension between love and fear remains, leaving the audience questioning what will happen next. And while Chloe and Johnny struggle with lies and parental interference, and Dylan and Paisha wrestle with boundaries and family loyalty, Luke and Mayline prove that past trauma and power dynamics can create drama even in relationships built on genuine care and commitment. Fans exploded online after this episode, and it's easy to see why. Chloe's lie about Johnny allegedly cheating ignited a storm of reactions. Viewers were split, some called her reckless and dramatic, while others empathized, saying she panicked and didn't know how to handle her feelings. Social media blew up with comments debating trust, honesty, and the consequences of telling a parent something so charged. Would you forgive Chloe if you were in Johnny's shoes? Johnny's patience didn't go unnoticed. Many praised him for staying calm in front of Chloe's mom, even when she grilled him relentlessly. But others argued that his restraint masked frustration and that his inability to confront the situation sooner allowed tension to spiral. Threads appeared dissecting every word he said, questioning whether he truly felt wronged or if he was overthinking Chloe's panic. The discussion tapped into something bigger: how young couples balance parental influence while maintaining independence. Viewers shared experiences of meddling parents, highlighting that this isn't just reality TV drama, it reflects real life dynamics. Could Johnny's silence be perceived as weakness, or is it emotional intelligence? Meanwhile, Dylan and Paisha's storyline became a lightning rod for debates about cultural norms and boundaries. Fans noticed Dylan's repeated calls to his mother and Paisha's rising frustration, and opinions split along cultural lines. Some argued Dylan was simply honoring familial ties, while others felt Paisha had every right to demand boundaries in a new relationship. Memes and comments flooded platforms joking about partner V's, parent priorities, and many viewers shared personal stories of similar struggles. The episode prompted a conversation about what constitutes healthy boundaries and how different upbringings shape our perceptions of loyalty and respect. If Dylan ignored your boundaries, how would you react? Luke and Malin's arc drew intense scrutiny. The combination of Malin's trauma, Luke's need for appreciation, and their repeated fights led to fans debating long-term compatibility. Some viewers expressed sympathy for Malin, acknowledging her past pain, while others pointed out that repeated defensive behavior can erode trust. Fans also noted patterns. Relationships where past trauma isn't addressed openly often spiral into recurring conflict, even when both partners genuinely care for each other. Comment threads were full of advice, criticism, and predictions about whether the wedding could survive the tension. Can a couple ever reconcile completely when the past keeps intruding on the present? Across all three storylines, social media showed a clear fascination with parental influence. Chloe and Johnny's tension, Dylan and Paisha's boundary issues, and Luke and Malin's trauma-driven disputes all sparked debates about how much family should be involved in adult relationships. Fans discussed cultural differences, generational expectations, and emotional intelligence, turning the episode into a broader conversation about love, loyalty, and personal autonomy. These discussions didn't resolve neatly. Comment sections remained heated, with back and forth stretching hours. Will fans ever agree on the right way to handle meddling parents? The episode also inspired fan theories and predictions for future episodes. Some speculated Chloe's secret would continue to haunt her relationship. Others predicted Dylan might clash again with Paisha over minor issues if he doesn't set boundaries. And Luke and Malin's fragile truce had viewers on edge, anticipating another emotional eruption at the wedding. Across forums, posts encouraged debate, with hashtags and threads dissecting every argument, every tone, every glance. Fans were glued, not just to the drama on screen, but to the discussion surrounding it. Which couple do you think will survive the chaos, and who is headed for a breakdown first? What's clear is that this episode didn't just entertain, it engaged audiences on multiple levels. From trust and lies to parental interference and emotional trauma, viewers were compelled to weigh in, compare experiences, and question their own relationships. The conversation is ongoing, and with social media buzzing, there's no end to the speculation. Fans are waiting, watching, debating, and emotionally invested in every decision these couples make. This episode leaves us holding our breath as we watch all three couples grapple with their personal battles. Chloe and Johnny's tension shows how a single misstep, whether a lie, a misunderstanding, or a moment of panic, can ripple outward and affect trust, independence, and family dynamics. Chloe's regret is palpable, Johnny's frustration is real, and her mother's overprotectiveness adds an extra layer of pressure. The emotional stakes are high, and the question remains: can honesty rebuild what fear and misunderstanding almost destroyed? Their story reminds us that trust is fragile, and that the way we handle our own mistakes can either strengthen or shatter a relationship. Dylan and Paisha's struggles center on boundaries and cultural expectations. Dylan's constant calls to his mother, though rooted in love and loyalty, clash with Paisha's need for autonomy and personal space. The tension here highlights a common struggle many couples face: balancing familial loyalty with partnership obligations. Paisha's frustration and Dylan's resistance show that compromise requires communication, empathy, and mutual respect. Viewers see how deeply personal upbringing and cultural norms influence behavior, and how failure to address these differences openly can keep recurring conflicts alive. Even small acts of awareness, like setting explicit boundaries, can make the difference between ongoing frustration and gradual harmony. Luke and Malin close the trio of drama with a mix of power struggles and emotional reconciliation. Malin's past trauma colors her responses, while Luke's desire for recognition and appreciation tests the limits of patience. Their arguments may be heated, but the moments of vulnerability reveal the hope underlying their relationship. The episode demonstrates how unresolved past experiences can infiltrate present interactions, making communication and respect more important than ever. Even as they reach a tentative understanding, viewers are left with the sense that every couple carries hidden pressures that could resurface at any moment. What ties all these stories together is the raw emotional truth. Relationships aren't just about love, they are a test of patience, communication, trust, and accountability. Each couple in this episode teaches us something different. Chloe and Johnny show that honesty matters, but timing and delivery are crucial. Dylan and Paisha reveal the importance of boundaries and cultural awareness in maintaining respect. Luke and Maylin illustrate that past trauma can shape the present and that empathy is a critical tool for reconciliation. And yet, despite the lessons, the drama isn't over. Chloe and Johnny are still navigating trust after the lie. Dylan and Paisha have unresolved tension over parental interference. Luke and Malin's fragile truce leaves a lingering uncertainty about what the wedding weekend might bring. The episode closes on a note of suspense, leaving viewers eager to see how these couples will act under pressure and whether the next misstep will be minor or catastrophic. Which couple will face the next emotional breaking point, and who will finally take a stand? Next week promises even more explosive moments. Someone is bound to lose control, tempers will flare, and a shocking confession is on the horizon that could change everything. With each relationship walking a tightrope between love and conflict, every interaction feels loaded with potential consequences. Fans are left asking, will reconciliation prevail, or will the pressure finally crack one of these couples wide open? You won't want to miss a second of the fallout that's about to unfold.